Jake Sullivan walked into the classroom at Galactic Academy, carrying his books and trying not to bump into the strange alien desks. The desks were made for different body types, some tall and thin, others wide and low. Jake found his usual spot. Near the middle of the room were the human-sized desks sat out the classroom, buzzed with quiet conversations in different languages. Some students made clicking sounds. Others spoke in musical tones that sounded like singing. Jake had learned to understand most of them through his translation device, but he still found the variety amazing. Zixtal sat to his left, her crystal body catching the light from the windows. She looked like a living diamond, beautiful but delicate. Every time someone walked too close to her desk, she would tense up, afraid of being bumped. To his right sat Mirza, who wore a special suit that kept her skin moist. She came from a water world and needed constant humidity to stay healthy. Behind him, Corv adjusted his thick armor plating. The Thrakari student was built like a walking tank with natural bone armor covering most of his body. Despite looking like a warrior, Corv was one of the gentlest beings Jake had ever met. He studied ancient poetry and spoke in a soft, careful voice. Professor Thrace entered the room, his long purple robes flowing behind him. The Zentarian teacher was old, even by his species' standards, and his 4 eyes showed the wisdom of centuries. His skin had a soft blue glow that grew brighter when he was excited about a topic. "Good morning, students," Professor Thrace said, his voice carrying easily through the room. "Today we begin our study of the most dangerous creatures in our galaxy." Jake pulled out his notebook, a simple paper pad that his alien classmates found fascinating. Most of them used digital devices that projected information directly into their minds. But Jake preferred the feel of pen on paper. Who can tell me what makes a creature truly dangerous? The professor asked. Several hands went up. Mirza spoke. First, her voice coming through the suit's speaker system. "Size, Professor. Large creatures can cause more damage." "A good start, but not complete," Professor Thrace replied. "Corv?" The armored student shifted in his seat. "Weapons, sir. Claws, teeth, venom. Natural weapons make creatures dangerous." Also correct, but still missing something important. The professor's eyes began to glow brighter. "Jake, what do you think?" Jake looked up from his notes. "Well, I guess it would be how well they survive. A creature that's hard to kill would be more dangerous than one that's easy to stop." "Excellent." Professor Thrace's glow increased. "Survival ability, or as we call it, resilience. Today, we will study creatures that combine all these traits. Creatures from worlds so harsh that only the strongest, most adaptable beings can survive." The professor touched a control on his desk, and the room darkened. A large holographic display appeared in the center of the classroom, showing a star map of the galaxy. "Throughout our galaxy, we have identified 12 worlds that we classify as Deathworlds. These planets have environments so hostile that they produce creatures of incredible danger. The gravity might be crushing, the atmosphere toxic, the weather deadly. Only the most resilient life forms can exist there." Red dots appeared on the star map, marking the locations of these dangerous worlds. Jake noticed that Earth wasn't marked, which made sense. His home planet was classified as a garden world, peaceful and safe. The creatures from these worlds share certain traits, Professor Thrace continued. They can survive extreme temperatures, both hot and cold. They heal quickly from injuries that would kill most beings. They can go long periods without food or water. Most importantly, they never give up. They keep fighting even when badly hurt. The hologram changed to show the first creature. It looked like a cross between a lizard and a spider, with 8 legs and scales that seemed to shift color. Its mouth was full of sharp teeth, and its claws looked like they could cut through metal. "This is a venom stalker from Kepler 442b, the professor explained. The planet has acid rain and temperatures that swing from freezing to boiling every few hours. The venom stalkers have adapted by developing acid-resistant skin and the ability to enter a dormant state during temperature extremes. Zixtal made. A sound like breaking glass, which Jake had learned meant she was frightened. How do they hunt, Professor? They're pack hunters. They work together to surround their prey, then attack from all sides. Their venom doesn't kill quickly. Instead, it paralyzes the victim while keeping them alive. The stalkers prefer fresh meat. Jake wrote this down, but he found himself thinking about wolves back on Earth. They hunted in packs too, using similar tactics. Of course, wolves weren't nearly as scary looking as these venom stalkers. The hologram shifted to show another creature. This one looked like a shark, but with 6 fins and rows of teeth that seemed to go all the way down its throat. The Razor. Maws of Proxima Centauri C, Professor Thrace said. Their world is covered in methane oceans with crushing pressure. These creatures can dive to depths that would flatten most ships. Their bite force is strong enough to crack our strongest metals. Mirsa. Suit made a worried humming sound. As an aquatic species, she clearly found the idea of such a dangerous sea creature terrifying. How fast can they swim? Corv asked. Faster than most of our spacecraft can travel underwater. They've been clocked at over 200 kilometers per hour, but speed isn't their most dangerous trait. They can track a single drop of blood across an entire ocean. Once they have your scent, they never stop hunting. Jake thought about great white sharks, which could also track blood across great distances. But sharks would eventually give up the hunt if they lost the trail. These razor maws sounded much more persistent. The next creature made everyone in the classroom gasp. It looked like a bear, but twice as large, with fur that seemed to be made of metal spikes. Its claws were longer than Jake's hand, and its eyes glowed red. Shell crushers from Wolf 359b, the professor said. Their planet has gravity 3 times stronger than most inhabited worlds. These creatures have adapted by developing incredibly dense bones and muscles. They can survive falls that would destroy buildings. Their claws can tear through the hull of a starship. How do you kill something like that? Zixtal asked, her crystal body dimming with fear. You don't, Professor Thrace replied simply. Our research teams study them from orbit. Any attempt to land on their world has ended in disaster. The shell crushers seem to view anything that moves as either food or a threat. They attack without warning and fight until either they or their enemy is dead. Jake stared at the hologram. The shell crusher did look incredibly dangerous, but something about its behavior reminded him of grizzly bears protecting their cubs. Bears could be aggressive, but usually only when they felt threatened. The professor continued showing creatures for the next hour. Each one seemed more terrifying than the last. There were flying creatures with acid breath, insect-like beings that could survive in space, and plant-like monsters that could move as fast as a running person. What struck Jake was how many similarities these creatures had to animals back on Earth. The pack hunting, the persistence, the ability to survive. Harsh conditions, these weren't unique traits. They were common among Earth's predators. For your assignment, Professor Thrace announced as the class period ended, I want each of you to choose one Deathworld creature and prepare a detailed report on what makes it so dangerous. Study its hunting methods, its survival adaptations, and its social behavior. Students began choosing their topics. Zixtal picked the crystal borers, creatures that reminded her of her own species, but twisted into something deadly. Mirsa chose the deep hunters, aquatic predators that ruled the dark oceans of their world. Corv selected the pack lords, creatures that fought with tactical intelligence. Professor, Jake said as the others left, could I study Earth's creatures? Professor Thrace looked surprised. Earth? But Earth is classified as a garden world. Its creatures are considered quite harmless. I know, but I'd like to do a comparison. Show how different peaceful world creatures are from these Deathworld. Beasts, the professor nodded approvingly. An excellent approach. Comparing harmless garden world fauna to these dangerous predators will help illustrate what makes Deathworld creatures so special. Jake gathered his books and headed for the door. As he walked through the hallway, he passed other students talking excitedly about the terrifying creatures they'd seen. Their fear was real, and Jake understood why. The holographic creatures had looked genuinely dangerous. But as he thought about the assignment, Jake realized something interesting. He was going to be studying humans as part of Earth's fauna. For the first time, he would be looking at his own species from an outside perspective, comparing them to the galaxy's most dangerous predators. He had a feeling this assignment was going to be more interesting than Professor Thrace expected. Jake spent the next 3 days in the Academy's library, digging through files about Earth and its creatures. The library was huge, with thousands of data terminals arranged in floating pods that adjusted to each species' needs. Jake's pod was simple, just a chair and a screen. But he watched other students using pods that filled with water or changed gravity. The first thing Jake discovered made him laugh out loud. According to the Galactic database, Earth was listed as Class C Garden, World Low Threat Level. The description read like a travel brochure for a peaceful resort planet. Earth, third planet in the Sol system, supports a variety of harmless life forms. Dominant species, humans. Physical description: soft-bodied bipeds with minimal natural defenses. Primary survival strategy: basic tool use and social cooperation. Threat assessment: negligible. Recommended for low-risk cultural exchange and academic programs. Jake stared at the screen, trying to understand how anyone could describe humans as having minimal natural defenses. Then he read further and began to see the problem. All the information about humans came from diplomatic contacts. Every human the galactic community had ever met was either a diplomat, a scientist, or a student like himself. They had never seen humans in survival situations or combat. They had never seen what humans could do when pushed to their limits. Database described human physical capabilities in terms that made them sound incredibly weak. Average human can lift approximately 1 times their body weight. Jake knew that was wrong. Most humans could lift much more than their own weight, and trained humans could lift several times their body weight. Human running speed: approximately 15 kilometers per hour for short distances. Again, this was way off. Jake himself could run twice that fast, and he wasn't even an athlete. Professional runners could go much faster. Human endurance: can walk approximately 10 kilometers before requiring rest. Jake almost laughed again. Humans regularly walked 20 or 30 kilometers for fun. Some could walk over 100 kilometers in a single day. The more Jake read, the more he realized how completely wrong the Galactic database was about humans. But he also began to understand why. The aliens who had compiled this information came from very different worlds with very different evolutionary pressures. Jake decided to research his alien classmates' homeworlds to understand them better. What he found explained a lot about their reactions to the Deathworld creatures. Zixtal species. The Quarthians evolved on a world with light gravity and no predators. Their crystal bodies were beautiful, but incredibly fragile. A fall that would barely bruise a human could shatter a Quarthian into pieces. Their world had never developed creatures that hunted other creatures. All life forms there were peaceful plant eaters. Mirsa S-Ocean world had predators, but they were small and slow. The biggest danger on her planet was getting lost in the vast kelp forests. Her people had developed intelligence to navigate their complex underwater cities, but they had never needed to fight for survival. Corv's species looked the most dangerous, with their natural armor, but Jake learned that Thrakari warfare was actually more like a sporting event. They had rules, referees, and safety equipment. No Thrakari had been seriously hurt in combat for over 1,000 years. Their armor was mostly for show now. Jake began to see a pattern. All the major galactic species had evolved on worlds where survival was relatively easy. They had developed technology and civilization without the harsh evolutionary pressures that shaped life on Earth. Earth, Jake realized, might actually be one of the toughest worlds that had produced intelligent life. Most planets either killed their life forms or made survival so easy that creatures never developed serious defensive abilities. Earth was right in the middle, dangerous enough to create tough creatures, but not so dangerous that life couldn't thrive. Over the next few days, Jake started paying closer attention to his alien friends during their daily activities. What he saw made him understand just how different he was from them. During lunch, Jake watched Zixtal carefully move through the cafeteria, avoiding any contact with other students. When someone accidentally bumped into her, she cracked slightly and had to spend an hour in the medical bay getting repaired. Mirza needed help opening food containers because her grip strength was too weak. She also had to eat special foods. That wouldn't damage her delicate digestive system. Corv, despite his armor, moved very slowly and carefully. Jake learned that Thrakari bones were actually hollow, like bird bones, making them light but fragile. Corv's armor protected him, but underneath he was as delicate as the others. Jake began to notice other things too. None of his alien friends could run for more than a few minutes without becoming exhausted. They needed frequent breaks during walking tours of the campus. They were amazed by Jake's ability to climb stairs without getting tired. The real eye-opener came during a minor emergency in their dormitory. A water pipe burst on the 3rd floor, flooding several rooms. Jake rushed upstairs to help move furniture and belongings out of the flooded area. Without thinking, Jake lifted a heavy desk and carried it down the stairs. Only when he reached the bottom did he notice the crowd of alien students staring at him in shock. "How did you do that?" Zixtal asked, her crystal body pulsing with amazement. "Do what?" Jake set the desk down carefully. "Lift that massive object. It must weigh twice what you weigh." Jake looked at the desk. It was heavy, but not impossibly so. "It's just a desk. I've moved heavier things before." The aliens exchanged worried glances. Jake realized he had accidentally revealed something about human capabilities that didn't match their database. "Jake," Mirza said carefully, "how much can your species typically lift?" Jake thought about it. "Well, it depends on the person and their training. An average human can probably lift their own weight pretty easily. Someone who works out regularly might lift twice that. Professional weightlifters can lift 3 or 4 times their body weight." The silence that followed was uncomfortable. Jake saw fear in their eyes, though he didn't understand why. Later that evening, Jake was studying in his room when Corv knocked on his door. The Thrakari student looked nervous, his armor plates shifting restlessly. "Jake, may I ask you something personal?" "Sure, come in." Corv entered carefully, his heavy footsteps making the floor vibrate. "This afternoon, when you lifted that desk, you weren't even breathing hard. How is that possible?" Jake tried to explain. "Humans are built for physical work. Our muscles are designed for lifting and carrying things. It's just normal for us. But the database says humans are physically weak. The database is wrong about a lot of things." Jake pulled up the Earth entry on his computer. "Look at this. It says humans can only run 15 kilometers per hour. I can run twice that fast, and I'm not even a good runner." Corv studied the information, his 4 eyes moving rapidly across the screen. "If this data is incorrect, what are humans actually capable of?" Jake thought about how to answer without scaring his friend. We're stronger than this says, faster than this says, and we can keep going much longer than this says. But we're not dangerous, Corv. We use our abilities to help people, not hurt them. You lifted that desk to save someone's belongings, Corv said slowly. You used your strength to help. Exactly. That's what humans do. But Jake could see that Corv was still troubled. After his friend left, Jake sat at his computer and began to really research human capabilities compared to other galactic species. What he found worried him. Humans were stronger than any known galactic species, except the Thrakari, and even they relied on mechanical assistance for heavy lifting. Humans were faster than any species, except the Korthians in their natural environment, and Korthians couldn't maintain speed for more than a few seconds. Most shocking of all, humans had endurance. That far exceeded any known species. The ability to run or walk for hours was completely unknown among galactic civilizations. Jake began to understand why his alien friends had looked frightened. By their standards, he wasn't just strong for his size. He was incredibly, impossibly strong. His casual demonstration of lifting the desk was like watching someone lift a car, but there was something else that worried Jake even more. As he read through the descriptions of Deathworld creatures from Professor Thrace's class, he kept seeing familiar traits. Pack hunting. Humans had done that for thousands of years. Persistence hunting, following prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Humans had been famous for that rapid healing from injuries. Humans took that for granted. Ability to survive extreme temperatures. Humans lived everywhere from Arctic ice to desert heat. Capability to go days without food or water. Human history was full of survival stories proving this. Most disturbing of all, humans had something that none of the Deathworld creatures possessed. Intelligence combined with tool use. The galaxy's most dangerous predators were smart, but they didn't build weapons or work together in organized groups. Jake stared at his reflection in the computer screen and saw something that chilled him. He was looking at a creature that combined the physical capabilities of a Deathworld beast with the intelligence and social organization of a galactic species. No wonder the database classification was wrong. The aliens who wrote it had never imagined that such a combination was possible. Jake walked into the classroom the next morning, carrying his presentation files, his stomach tight with nervousness. He had spent most of the night preparing, trying to figure out how to present the truth about humans without causing panic. The other students were already seated, chatting excitedly about their presentations. Professor Thrace entered with his usual flowing robes, his 4 eyes bright with anticipation. Today we will see your research on Deathworld creatures. I hope you have all discovered fascinating information about these dangerous beasts. Zixtal went first, her crystal body reflecting the holographic display as she presented the crystal borers. The creatures looked like giant insects made of living rock, with mandibles that could crush diamond. These creatures live in the asteroid belt around Tau Ceti E, Zixtal explained, her voice trembling slightly. They can survive in the vacuum of space and eat solid metal. When mining ships encounter them, the borers tear through the hull like it was made of soft clay. The class watched video footage of a crystal borer attacking a research probe. The creature moved with shocking speed for something made of rock, its jaws crunching through titanium plating in seconds. They work in groups, Zixtal continued. When one finds a ship, it calls others. They surround the vessel and attack from all sides until they break through. Professor Thrace nodded approvingly. Excellent research. The pack coordination of crystal borers is one of their most dangerous traits. Mirza presented next, showing the deep hunters of Kepler 438b. The aquatic predators looked like massive eels with rows of teeth and bioluminescent lures. They live in oceans with pressure that would crush most ships, Mirza said through her suit's speaker. They can dive deeper than our submarines can go. But the most frightening thing is their hunting method. The hologram showed a deep hunter stalking its prey through the dark water. The creature moved with deadly patience, following a school of smaller fish for hours before striking. They never give up once they start hunting. Our research teams tracked one deep hunter that followed a wounded prey animal for 3 weeks across an entire ocean. It never stopped, never rested, until it caught its target. Jake watched his classmates' reactions. They were genuinely terrified by these creatures, and he understood why. To beings as fragile as his alien friends, the idea of predators that never gave up must be the stuff of nightmares. Corv's presentation on pack lords was equally disturbing. The creatures looked like wolves, but larger and more intelligent. They used tools, set traps, and coordinated attacks with military precision. Pack lords show intelligence that rivals some galactic species, Corv explained. They plan their hunt days in advance. They post guards, use diversions, and even take prisoners to use as bait for larger prey. The footage showed pack lords working together to bring down a massive herbivore. Their teamwork was flawless, each animal playing a specific role in the hunt. The most dangerous part is that they learn from each encounter. If a hunting strategy fails, they modify it and try again. They adapt faster than most species can develop defenses. Professor Thrace was clearly impressed with all the presentations. Excellent work, all of you. These examples show why Deathworld creatures are classified as extreme threats. Now, Jake, let's see what you discovered about Earth's peaceful fauna. Jake stood up, his heart pounding. He activated his holographic display, showing images of Earth from space. The blue and green planet looked beautiful and harmless. Earth is classified as a garden world, Jake began, but I think there might be some mistakes in our galactic database. He showed his first creature, a great white shark. The massive predator glided through blue water, its triangular fin cutting the surface like a blade. This is a great white shark. They can grow up to 6 meters long and weigh over 2 tons. Their bite force is strong enough to crush bones, and they have rows of teeth that constantly replace themselves. The aliens shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This didn't look like a harmless garden world creature. Sharks can smell blood from kilometers away, Jake continued. They can swim at speeds up to 60 kilometers per hour. But here's the interesting part. They hunt alone or in small groups, unlike the pack creatures we've seen from Deathworld species. Jake showed more footage of sharks hunting. The creatures were impressive, but they attacked with simple, straightforward tactics. Now let me show you something more complex, Jake said, switching to footage of wolves hunting elk. The wolves moved through snow-covered forest with silent coordination. They spread out, surrounded their prey, and attacked from multiple directions simultaneously. Wolves are pack hunters, Jake explained. They use teamwork, strategy, and persistence. They can run for hours without stopping, following their prey, until it becomes exhausted. Zixtao made her frightened glass-breaking sound. Jake, these creatures sound very dangerous for a garden world. That's what I thought too, Jake replied. But let me show you the apex predator of Earth. The hologram changed to show human beings. Jake had chosen footage of humans in various activities: running, climbing, swimming, and working together in groups. These are humans, Jake said quietly. The dominant species of Earth. Professor Thrace leaned forward, his eyes beginning to glow with interest. Continue. Humans are pursuit. Predators, Jake explained. They can run continuously for hours, following prey until it collapses from exhaustion. No other Earth creature can match human endurance. Jake showed footage of marathon runners, their steady pace eating up mile after mile. Humans can survive in almost any environment on Earth. From Arctic ice to desert heat, from high mountains to deep caves. They adapt by using tools and working together. The hologram showed humans in different environments. Inuit hunters in the Arctic, Bedouins, crossing deserts, mountain climbers scaling peaks. But here's what makes humans truly unique, Jake continued. They combine intelligence with physical capability. They make weapons, use fire, and coordinate complex group activities. Jake showed footage of human teamwork, construction crews, building skyscrapers, military units working together, rescue teams saving people from disasters. The classroom had become completely silent. Jake could see growing alarm in his classmates' faces. "Let me demonstrate some basic human capabilities," Jake said, stepping away from the podium. Before anyone could object, Jake dropped to the floor and began doing push-ups. He counted out loud. As he performed 20 perfect repetitions, then stood up without appearing tired. The aliens stared in shock. To them, Jake had just demonstrated incredible strength and endurance. "Humans can do this all day," Jake said casually. "Now, let me show you human running ability." Jake jogged around the classroom at a pace that seemed normal to him. But his alien classmates watched in amazement as he completed several laps without breathing hard. "Basic human speed and endurance," Jake explained as he stopped. "Most humans can run much faster than this for short distances, or maintain this pace for hours." Professor Thrace stood up, his 4 eyes now glowing brightly with alarm. "Jake, according to our database, humans cannot perform these feats." "Your database is wrong, Professor," Jake replied. "Let me show you something else." Jake pulled out a small knife from his backpack and made a tiny cut on his finger. The aliens gasped as a drop of blood appeared. "Human healing ability, Jake." Sighed, applying pressure to the cut. Within minutes, the bleeding stopped and the wound began to close. "This is normal for humans. We heal from cuts, bruises, and even broken bones. Our bodies repair themselves automatically." Mirza's suit began making alarmed humming sounds. "Jake, you just demonstrated rapid healing, extreme strength, superior endurance, and intelligence. According to our classification system, those are the traits of a Class A Deathworld predator." The classroom erupted in frightened chatter. Students began moving away from Jake, their alien languages mixing into a cacophony of fear. "Professor." Thrace held up his hands for silence. "Jake, are you saying that humans possess the physical capabilities of Deathworld creatures?" Jake nodded slowly. "Not just the physical capabilities, Professor. Humans also have the behavioral traits. We're persistence hunters. We work in coordinated groups, and we never give up when we're determined to achieve something." "But you seem so peaceful," Corv said, his armor plates rattling with nervousness. "Most humans are peaceful," Jake replied. "We've developed beyond simple hunting and survival. We use our abilities to build, to create, to help others. But the capabilities are still there." Professor Thrace was staring at Jake with a mixture of fascination and fear. "According to your presentation, humans would classify as the most dangerous species we've ever encountered. You combine intelligence with Deathworld physical traits." "I suppose that's true," Jake admitted. "But Professor, I've been living among you for months. Have I ever hurt anyone? Have I ever acted aggressively?" The classroom fell silent as the students considered this. Jake had indeed been nothing but helpful and friendly during his time at the academy. "You carried furniture during the flood," Zixtal said slowly. "You used your strength to help people." "You helped me with my studies," Mirza added. "Even though you could have could have hurt you?" Jake finished gently. "Yes, I probably could have. But why would I want to? You're my friends." Within 2 hours of Jake's presentation, the Academy's emergency response team arrived at his dormitory room. Jake was packing his books when he heard the heavy footsteps in the hallway. Through his window, he could see security vehicles surrounding the building. Director Quinn entered with 4 armed guards, their weapons drawn but pointed at the floor. The elderly Zentarian administrator looked nervous, her blue skin pale with worry. "Mr. Sullivan," she said formally, "please come with us. We need to discuss your situation." Jake stood slowly, keeping his hands visible. He had expected this reaction, but seeing armed guards still made him uncomfortable. "Am I under arrest?" "You're being placed in protective custody, Director," Quinn replied, "for everyone's safety, including your own." The guards escorted Jake through the hallways of the academy. Students pressed against the walls as they passed, staring at Jake with mixtures of fear and fascination. Word of his presentation had spread quickly through the school. They brought him to a conference room in the administration building. The room was large, with a table designed to accommodate different alien body types. Director Quinn sat across from Jake, while the guards positioned themselves near the exits. "Mr. Sullivan," the director began, "we've reviewed the footage from your presentation. Professor Thrace has also filed a detailed report about your capabilities." Jake nodded. "I told the truth about humans. I thought that was what the assignment required. The truth, yes, but the implications are concerning." Director Quinn touched a control pad, and a holographic display appeared showing Jake's academic file. "According to our records, you're a normal human student from a garden world. Your species is classified as harmless. Your classification is wrong," Jake said simply. "So it seems." The director pulled up footage from Jake's presentation, showing him doing push-ups and jogging around the classroom. "Our xenobiology experts have analyzed this footage. They conclude that you demonstrated strength levels comparable to a Class B Deathworld creature and endurance that exceeds anything in our databases." Jake watched himself on the screen. To him, the exercises looked routine, almost boring. "That's just basic human fitness. I'm not even in particularly good shape." Director Quinn's skin grew even paler. "You're saying other humans are more capable than you?" "Much more capable. Athletes, soldiers, people who work physical jobs, they're all stronger and faster than me. I'm just an average college student." The door opened, and Professor Thrace entered the room. His 4 eyes were dim with worry, and his usual confident posture was gone. "Director Quinn, I've just finished reviewing the galactic database entries for Earth," he said. "I believe we have a serious problem." The professor activated another display, showing comparative data between humans and known galactic species. The numbers were alarming. If Mr. Sullivan's claims are accurate, humans exceed the physical capabilities of every known civilized species. Their strength, speed, endurance, and healing abilities all fall into the Deathworld creature category. Director Quinn studied the data. "How is this possible? We've had diplomatic contact with humans for over 50 years. Surely someone would have noticed these capabilities." "I've been researching that," Professor Thrace replied. "All human contact has been through carefully controlled diplomatic situations. The humans we've met have been ambassadors, scientists, and students, like Mr. Sullivan. They've never been in situations that would reveal their true physical abilities." Jake spoke up. "We've been trying not to scare you. Human diplomats are trained to be gentle and non-threatening around alien species." "Non-threatening?" Director Quinn looked at Jake with new understanding. "You've been deliberately hiding your capabilities?" "Not hiding exactly, just not demonstrating them. We knew you saw us as a peaceful species, so we acted peacefully." Professor Thrace leaned forward. "Mr. Sullivan, when you lifted that desk during the flood, you weren't trying to show off your strength." "I was trying to help move furniture out of the water. I didn't think about how it might look to you. But you must have known you were much stronger than us." Jake considered this. I knew you were more fragile than humans, yes. But I didn't realize how much weaker you were until I started researching for this assignment. The door opened again, and 3 more officials entered the room. Jake recognized them as the Academy's senior staff, the head of security, the chief medical officer, and the xenobiology department chair. The security chief, a heavily armored Thrakari named Commander. Rex spoke first. We've contacted Earth's diplomatic mission. They're sending a representative to discuss this situation. What did they say when you told them about Mr. Sullivan's presentation? Director Quinn asked. They seemed confused by our concern. The human ambassador said, and I quote, "Jake is a perfectly normal young man. Why would that be a problem?" Jake sighed. They probably don't understand what you're worried about. To humans, my abilities are completely ordinary. The medical officer, Dr. Yan, studied Jake with her large compound eyes. Mr. Sullivan, would you consent to some medical tests? We need to verify your claims about human healing and physical capabilities. What kind of tests? Nothing harmful. We'd like to measure your grip strength, cardiovascular capacity, and bone density. Perhaps observe your healing process with a small, controlled injury. Jake agreed, and Dr. Yan began her examination. The results confirmed everyone's worst. Fears. Jake's grip strength was 3 times stronger than the most powerful Thrakari. His bone density was off the charts. When Dr. Yan made a tiny cut on his arm to test healing, the wound closed completely within 30 minutes. Remarkable, Dr. Yan muttered, recording the data. His healing rate is faster than most of our medical treatments. Dr. Yan, Director. Quinn said, in your professional opinion, would humans qualify as a Deathworld species? The medical officer looked at her readings, then at Jake. Based on these measurements, humans would be classified as Class A Deathworld predators. Their physical capabilities exceed every dangerous creature in our databases. The room fell silent. Jake could see the fear in everyone's eyes, even though they were trying to hide it. I'm still the same person I was yesterday, Jake said quietly. I haven't changed. You just know more about what I'm capable of now. Commander Rex shifted his weight, his armor clanking. The problem, Mr. Sullivan, is that we now realize we've been hosting what amounts to an apex predator in our academy. Our security protocols are designed for civilized species, not Deathworld creatures. But I'm not just a predator, Jake protested. I'm a student. I came here to learn, to make friends, to build understanding between species. That may be true, Director Quinn said, but we have to consider the safety of our other students. What if you lost control? What if you became angry or frightened? Jake thought about this seriously. Director, I've been angry before. I've been scared before. I've never hurt anyone. Humans learn self-control from childhood. We have to, because we live around other humans who are just as strong as we are. Professor Thrace looked up from his datapad. That's an interesting point. How do humans maintain peaceful societies when everyone possesses these capabilities? The same way you maintain peace here, Jake replied. Through laws, social norms, education, and mutual respect. Just because we can hurt each other doesn't mean we want to. The xenobiology chair, Professor Lisa, spoke for the first time. Mr. Sullivan, you mentioned that other humans are more capable than you. How much variation is there in human abilities? A lot. Some humans are natural athletes who can run faster than cars or lift incredible weights. Others are trained fighters who could probably defeat entire squads of your security forces. But they're all still people with families, jobs, and peaceful lives. Commander Rex looked alarmed. Are you saying there are humans who are even more dangerous than you? I'm saying there are humans who are more physically capable than me, but that doesn't make them dangerous. My friend back home is a professional fighter. He could probably tear apart this entire room in seconds. But he spends his free time teaching kids how to read and volunteers at animal shelters. This is becoming more complicated by the minute, Director Quinn said. We need to contact the Galactic Council immediately. Wait, Jake said urgently. Before you do anything drastic, can I ask you something? What? Have I given you any reason to fear me? In all the months I've been here, have I ever acted aggressively toward anyone? The officials looked at each other. Professor Thrace was the first to speak. No, Jake, you've been nothing but helpful and kind. You've tutored struggling students, helped during emergencies, and shown patience with everyone, even when they asked difficult questions about your culture. Then why are you afraid of me now? I'm the same person I was this morning. Director Quinn considered this. Because now we know what you're capable of. The potential for harm is enormous. The potential for help is enormous too, Jake replied. Humans don't just have the capability to destroy. We have the capability to protect, to build, to heal. You're focusing on what I could do, not on what I choose to do. The room fell quiet again. Jake could see that his words were having an impact. But he could also see that fear was winning over logic. Finally, Director Quinn spoke. Mr. Sullivan, I'm sorry, but until we can fully assess this situation. Jake spent 3 days in the medical facility's secure wing, a comfortable but isolated room with reinforced walls and constant monitoring. The guards were polite but nervous, always keeping their distance. Meals were delivered through a slot in the door, and Jake's only contact with the outside world was through a heavily secured communication terminal. On the morning of the 4th day, Jake heard familiar voices in the hallway. The door opened to reveal 3 new human arrivals. Ambassador Lisa Chun, Dr. Ryan Torres from Earth's Xenobiology Institute, and Captain Maya Johnson from Earth's Space Fleet. Jake had never been happier to see fellow humans. Jake Sullivan. Ambassador Chun said with a warm smile, You've certainly stirred up quite a conversation. Behind the humans, Director Quinn and Professor Thrace entered nervously. The contrast was striking. The humans moved with casual confidence, while the aliens stayed close to the walls. Ambassador Chun, Director Quinn said carefully, thank you for coming so quickly. We need to discuss the security implications of Mr. Sullivan's revelations. Security implications? Dr. Torres looked puzzled. Jake's a college student. What security implications? Captain Johnson, a tall woman with short black hair, studied the reinforced room. Why is he being held in what looks like a prison cell? For everyone's safety? Director Quinn replied. Mr. Sullivan has demonstrated capabilities that classify him as a Class A Deathworld predator. The 3 humans exchanged glances, and Jake could see them trying not to smile. Director, Ambassador Chun said gently, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Jake isn't dangerous. He's actually quite typical for a human his age. Typical? Professor Thrace pulled out his datapad, showing recordings from Jake's presentation. He demonstrated strength levels that exceed our strongest species' endurance. That surpasses our military training standards and healing abilities that rival our best medical technology. Dr. Torres watched the footage of Jake doing push-ups and jogging. Those are normal human exercises. Children do those in school physical education classes. Children? Director Quinn's blue skin went pale. You're saying human offspring can perform these feats? By age 10 or 12, most human children could do what Jake demonstrated, Captain Johnson confirmed. Jake, show them a real demonstration. Before anyone could object, Captain Johnson dropped to the floor and began doing one-handed push-ups. She performed 20 perfect repetitions, then switched hands and did 20 more. When she finished, she wasn't even breathing hard. The aliens in the room backed away in terror. Captain Johnson is a military officer, Ambassador Chun explained. to the stunned aliens. She represents the upper range of human physical capability, but she's still just a person. She has a family, hobbies, and a pet cat named Whiskers. "This is impossible," Director Quinn whispered. "How can beings with such capabilities exist in peaceful societies?" Dr. Torres sat down at the room's table, gesturing for the aliens to join him. "May I explain human evolution and social development?" Reluctantly, the aliens sat down, though they kept as much distance as possible from the humans. "Earth is indeed a dangerous world by your standards," Dr. Torres began. "High gravity, extreme weather, large predators, and constant competition for resources. Humans evolved to survive in this environment, which gave us the physical capabilities Jake demonstrated. But we also evolved something else, Ambassador," Chun added. "Advanced social cooperation. Humans learned that working together was more effective than fighting each other. We developed what we call civilization," Captain Johnson continued. "Laws, ethics, art, science. We channel our physical abilities into building rather than destroying." Professor Thrace leaned forward, his scientific curiosity overcoming his fear. "But surely conflicts still occur. How do you prevent violence when everyone possesses these capabilities?" "The same way you prevent conflicts here," Jake said. "Through education, social pressure, and consequences for harmful behavior. Most humans never use their full physical potential because they never need to." "What about your military?" Commander Rex asked Captain Johnson. "You must have incredibly dangerous soldiers." Captain Johnson nodded. "We do, but Earth's military exists to protect people, not to conquer them. Our soldiers are trained in discipline, in restraint as much as combat." "This is all very interesting," Director Quinn said, "but it doesn't change the fact that humans represent an unprecedented security risk to the galactic community." "Do we?" Ambassador Chun asked. "Humans have been interacting with galactic species for 50 years. How many incidents of human violence have been reported?" Director Quinn checked her records. "None, but—" "No buts," Jake interrupted. "You have 50 years of evidence that humans are peaceful. You're letting fear override facts." Dr. Torres pulled out his own data pad. "We've brought updated information about human society. Would you like to see what Earth is really like?" The holographic display showed images of Earth's cities, universities, hospitals, and farms. Humans could be seen working together, helping each other, and living peaceful lives. "This is New York City," Dr. Torres explained, showing footage of a bustling street. 8 million humans living together in a small area. If humans were naturally violent, this would be impossible. "Here's a human hospital," Ambassador Chun added, showing doctors and nurses caring for patients. Humans using their abilities to heal rather than harm. "And this is a school," Captain Johnson said, displaying children playing together in a playground. Young humans learning cooperation and kindness. Professor Thrace studied the images carefully. "These children, they're all capable of the feats Mr. Sullivan demonstrated?" "Give or take," Dr. Torres confirmed. "But they're taught from infancy. That strength should be used to help others, not hurt them." "What about when they become angry or frightened?" Commander Rex asked. "Same as any intelligent being," Jake replied. "We use words instead of violence. We have laws and social systems to handle conflicts peacefully." The room was quiet for several minutes as the aliens processed this information. Finally, Director Quinn spoke. "If what you're saying is true, then humans represent something we've never encountered before. A Deathworld species that has evolved beyond its predatory origins." "Exactly," Ambassador Chun said. "We're not just surviving anymore. We're thriving. And we want to share that success with the galaxy." Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Emergency lights flashed, and Jake could hear panicked voices in the hallways. Commander Rex's communication device crackled to life. "Commander, we have an emergency. The old mining tunnel has collapsed with a research team inside, Dr. Mirza, and 3 other students are trapped." Jake was on his feet instantly. "Where's the collapse?" "Jake, you're still technically in custody," Director Quinn began. "People are trapped," Jake said firmly. "We can argue about my status later." "Captain." Johnson checked her equipment. "How deep is the collapse?" 40 meters down behind tons of rubble," Commander Rex replied. "Our rescue equipment can't penetrate that far." "Humans can," Dr. Torres said simply. Ambassador Chun turned to Director Quinn. "Director, this is exactly what we're talking about. Humans don't use their abilities to threaten others. We use them to help." Director Quinn looked at the desperate situation, then at the humans who were already preparing to help. "What do you need?" "Access to the site, basic digging tools, and trust," Jake said. Within minutes, Jake and Captain Johnson were rappelling down the collapsed tunnel, while Dr. Torres coordinated the rescue from above. The aliens watched in amazement as the humans worked with tireless efficiency. Jake used his strength to move rocks that would have required heavy machinery. Captain Johnson squeezed through spaces too small for rescue robots. Together, they created a path through the debris that no alien species could have managed. 4 hours later, they emerged with all 4 trapped researchers. Mirza was unconscious, but alive, her suit's life support systems barely functioning. As the medical team took over, Jake sat exhausted but satisfied on a pile of rubble. Professor Thrace approached him cautiously. "Jake," the professor said, "I owe you an apology, and perhaps we all do." "You don't owe me anything, Professor. I just did what anyone would do." "No," Professor Thrace replied. "You did what a human would do, and I'm beginning to understand what that means." Director Quinn joined them, looking thoughtful. "Mr. Sullivan, I believe we need to revise our classification system. Not all Deathworld species are threats. Some, it seems, are guardians." Jake smiled, finally feeling the tension of the past few days lifting. "Does this mean I can go back to class?" "Yes," Director Quinn said. "But I think Professor Thrace will need to update his curriculum." Professor Thrace nodded enthusiastically. "We'll need an entirely new category. Benevolent Deathworld species. Creatures who use their abilities to protect rather than prey." As they walked back to the academy, Jake saw his alien classmates waiting for him. Zixtal, despite her fragility, stepped forward first. "Jake," she said, her crystal body ringing like a bell, "thank you for saving Mirza. We were wrong to fear you." "You weren't wrong to be cautious," Jake replied. "But I hope now you understand that being strong doesn't mean being dangerous." Korv removed his helmet, something Jake had never seen him do before. Would you teach us about human strength?"